प्रभुपाद समाधि के मंदिर के सामने, तो वो कुआं का पानी एकदम गर्मी में ठंडा ठंडा निकलता था। प्रभुपाद जी उस कुआं का पानी ग्रहण करते थे। हाँ, तो इस तरह से जो है तो मैं तो उस समय नया भक्त ही था, तो हमको तो सेवा दी थी, क्योंकि हरीश्वरी प्रभु जी जो है यहाँ टेम्पो कमांडर थे। ऐसे बहुत सारे टेम्पो कमांडर हर 2 महीना में बदली होते थे। हाँ, तो मंदिर साफ सफाई की सेवा मेरी थी। 3 बार जो जैसे मंदिर खुला नया, वो मंदिर जब उद्घाटन हुआ उसके बाद हम केवल मंदिर साफ सफाई करते थे 3 बार। आजकल तो स्वीपर लोग कर रहे हैं, तो लेकिन उस समय केवल जो भक्त ज्वाइन होता है तो उसकी ड्यूटी होती थी सेवा, मंदिर साफ करने की, बर्तन धोने की, और आश्रम साफ करने की, सब जो हम लोग नया भक्त होते थे करते थे। हम जब नहीं करते थे तो हमको निकाल देते थे। उस समय एकदम स्ट्रिक्ट रूल था, नियम था। टेम्पो कमांडर बोलता था गेट आउट। नो, मेरे सामने कितने इंडियन भक्तों को निकाल दिया, हाँ, बंगाली लोगों को निकाल दिया जो सेवा नहीं करते। तो मैं तो पूरा जो सेवा बोला सब बराबर करता था 3 टाइम। तो मेरे को बहुत अच्छी तरह से ये लोगों ने रखा यहाँ पर, प्रेम से मेरे साथ बहुत प्रेम दिया। हाँ, अभी भी मेरे जो सीनियर गॉड ब्रदर गुरु भाई लोग हैं बहुत मेरे को प्रेम देते हैं, तभी तो मैं अभी आपके सामने बोल रहा हूँ। ये प्रेम नहीं देते, हाँ, मेरे को साथ नहीं देते तो मैं अभी कहाँ हो जाता, मैं कर्मी बन जाता, कुछ न कुछ हो जाता। तो लेकिन इनके एसोसिएशन उन्होंने मेरे को दिया। मैं तो नेपाल से आया था, मेरे पास तो उसमें कोई ज्ञान ध्यान कुछ नहीं था। तो मेरे को ISKCON यहाँ ISKCON है करके मालूम भी नहीं था यहाँ पर ISKCON है, ये है, क्योंकि उस समय कोई टेलीफोन वगैरह मोबाइल वगैरह कुछ नहीं थे, कोई कॉन्टैक्ट नंबर नहीं। अननोइंगली मैं मेरे प्रभुपाद जी ने मेरे को यहाँ खींच के लाया, अननोइंगली मैं आया था ऐसे ही। हाँ, तो ऐसे ही तो मैं संस्कृत स्टडी करने के लिए आया था यहाँ पर। पहले दूसरा आश्रम में था, क्योंकि हम फ्रॉम ब्राह्मण फैमिली नेपाल से। तो इसलिए हम जब ऐसे ही यहाँ आया, लोग बोले अंग्रेज मंदिर, तो मंदिर बन रहा है। तो उस हिसाब से फिर तो मेरे को भी लोगों ने बोला कि आप अंग्रेज जैसे लगते हैं, आप अंग्रेज मंदिर में देखिए जाइए। हाँ, बोला आप अंग्रेज लगते हैं। मेरे को कोई इंडियन भारतीय नहीं बोलता था, तो इसलिए तो मैं इधर आया, देखा तो 12:30 बजे तो यहाँ आरती हो रही थी अच्छी तरह से। तो सब लोग नाच रहे थे, कीर्तन कर रहे थे। तो अपना जो है स्मरहारी प्रभु पहले मेरे को मिले थे यहाँ पर। हाँ, स्मरहारी प्रभु जानते हैं, इसलिए अभी भी तो मेरे को जो है बहुत आदर करते हैं, मैं उनका भर आभार मानता हूँ। तो उस दिन तो उस हिसाब से जो है केवल स्मरहारी प्रभु जी है जब मैं ज्वाइन हुआ था। अभी तक ये इधर है वृंदावन धाम में। हाँ, तो वो लोगों ने तो फिर ये आरती हुई, तो मैं इधर ही खड़ा था। तो यहाँ पर तो आरती के बाद सब भक्त लोग प्रसाद खाने के लिए गए। जो अभी गोविंदा रेस्टोरेंट है यहाँ पर, उसमें जो प्रसाद हॉल था, जो भक्तों का जो लाइब्रेरी है प्रभुपाद जी की, उसमें वो लेडीज प्रसाद हॉल था। तो उसमें केवल विदेशी भक्त थे, अमेरिकन, यूरोपियन और ऑस्ट्रेलियन, कोई रशियन नहीं था। हाँ, रशियन कुछ नहीं थे उसमें। तो अमेरिकन, ऑस्ट्रेलियन, यूरोपियन भक्त थे, इटालियन थे। तो इस तरह से जो है तो यहाँ तो फिर वो स्मरहारी प्रभु गिरिवरधारी प्रभु ने मेरे को बोला कि चलो प्रसाद खाने के लिए। वो ये फ्रॉम, मेरे को इंग्लिश में बात की उन्होंने। तो लेकिन मैं बोला आई डोंट नो इंग्लिश। बोला आप कहाँ से आए? मैं बोला नेपाल से हूँ मैं। तो फिर हिंदी उनको कुछ शब्द आता था, तो उन्होंने हिंदी में बताया आप प्रसाद के लिए आइए। तो मैं प्रसाद खाने उनके साथ गया। प्रसाद माहौल में उन्होंने मेरे को अच्छी तरह से प्रसाद खिला दिया यहाँ पर। और मेरे को प्रसाद बहुत अच्छा लगा। उसमें बहुत बेस्ट प्रसाद बनता था यहाँ पर ISKCON में। क्योंकि सब विदेशी भक्त थे, भारतीय कोई नहीं थे। क्योंकि नहीं तो डिवोटी लोग सभी भक्ति लोग बनाते थे, कोई कर्मी का नाम ही नहीं था, शून्यवादी था यहाँ पर। तो सब भक्त लोग बनाते थे। और क्योंकि थोड़ा भी ज़्यादा मिर्चा ज़्यादा तेल डाला तो वो लोगों को मलेरिया हो जाता था। हाँ, तो डेंगू हो जाता था, बीमार पड़े रहते थे। तो इसलिए प्रसाद में एकदम सिंपल और बहुत सुंदर प्रसाद, अच्छा लगा मेरे को प्रसाद देना। तो फिर बाद में तो उन्होंने स्मरहारी प्रभु जी ने इन्हें बोला कि आपको प्रसाद अच्छा लगा है? मैं बोला हाँ बहुत अच्छा लगा है। तो बोला आप इधर ही रह जाइए। तो बोला ठीक है। तो उसमें अक्षयानंद महाराज यहाँ के प्रेसिडेंट थे, इंचार्ज थे, गुणानबा प्रभु जी, हाँ ये सब पुराने पुराने भक्त है, इंचार्ज धनंजय प्रभु। तो उन्होंने तो फिर मेरे को ऑफिस में लेके गए। तो फिर वहाँ मेरे को जो है शेविंग करा दिया उसी दिन। तो उसी दिन जो है हरीश्वरी प्रभु ने अपने रूम में 10 दिन रखा मेरे को और विभूति चैतन्य को। विभूति चैतन्य भी ये हमारे साथ में ज्वाइन हुए हैं साथ में। तो फिर मेरे को सब ट्रेनिंग उन्होंने दिया है अच्छी तरह से। तो बहुत प्यार करते थे। तो मैं मेरा सेवा दिया मंदिर साफ करने का, सुबह सुबह शाम, सुबह भी करता था, शाम को भी और दोपहर को भी। एक इटालियन भक्त था, हम दोनों नया भक्त साफ करते थे। और विभू चैतन्य जो है कुकिंग करता थे, वो मतलब सब्जी कटिंग, उसमें नया भक्त थे तो सब्जी कटिंग करते थे, डिवोटी के लिए प्रसाद सहयोग करते थे। फिर बाद में हमारी दीक्षा हुई यहाँ पर, तो पूरा डिटेल में नहीं जाना है। तो दीक्षा होने के बाद फिर और मैं जो है, क्योंकि उसमें पुजारी यहाँ नहीं थे, बहुत पुजारी बीमार पड़ जाते थे। तो शुरू में पुजारी जो है नरोत्तम प्रभु था यहाँ पर। हाँ, तो उन्होंने फिर प्रभुपाद से के प्रेसिडेंट से कहा कि पुजारी की कमी है, हमारे पास पुजारी नहीं है, सब लोग गर्मी में सब चले गए, पासपोर्ट वीज़ा प्रॉब्लम ये वो, तो इंडियन कुछ कोई नहीं थे यहाँ पर भारतीय। तो उन्होंने कहा कि बोलो ठीक है। तो मैं क्योंकि साफ़ सफाई करता था, अच्छा लगा उनको मेरे को व्यवहार। तो मेरे को फिर प्रभुपाद जी के पास लेके गए। अक्षयानंद महाराज बोला आई वांट टू गिव ब्राह्मण इनिशिएशन फॉर दिस बॉय बिकॉज इज वेरी सिंसियर डूइंग नाइस सेवा। तो प्रभुपाद बोला ठीक है, आई गिव द ब्राह्मण इनिशिएशन। तो फिर उसमें प्रभुपाद ने मेरे को जो है प्रभुपाद के कमरे में दोपहर को जो है बुलाया। हरीश्वरी उसमें प्रभुपाद के सेक्रेटरी थे। तो हरीश्वरी को बोला इनको पेपर दे दो। तो प्रभुपाद ने मेरे गले में जनेई थी, घर से मैं 8 वर्ष के जनेई डालते थे। तो जनेई प्रभुपाद ने निकाल के फेंक दिया। फिर अपना हाथ से प्रभुपाद ने मेरे जनेई डाल के दिया। फिर गायत्री मंत्र सिखा दिया। तो फिर बाद में 3 दिन के बाद मैं पुजारी बन गया यहाँ पर कृष्ण बलराम मंदिर में। तो बिगिनिंग आया वो जो पुजारी एट दिस टेम्पल कृष्ण बलराम मंदिर। तो यहाँ पुजारी बन के और फिर हम पूजा करते थे। पुजारी बहुत फिर चेंज होते रहते थे उस समय, ओमकारा वगैरह किसका किसका नाम लें। तो लेकिन पुजारी करने उस समय एक भी पुजारी नहीं था, बीमार रहता था। हमको सुबह मंगल आरती से लेकर रात को 9 बजे 8 बजे तक का आरती मेरे को करना पड़ता था यहाँ पर, है ना। तो अभी तो बोलता है कि 6-6 महीना में नंबर नहीं लगता है। हाँ, हेड पुजारी बोल रहा था कि मतलब सब पूजा करने, आप आरती करने के लिए सब लोग चाहते हैं। अभी इतने भक्त बन गए, लेकिन उसमें भक्त कोई नहीं था। तो हमको मेरे को बार बार हेड पूजा कोई नो बडी इज देयर, प्लीज़ कम डू दिस डू देयर, चेंज बैक ड्रॉप, ये डीटी डैशिंग, ये सब हमको मेरी को सेवा देते थे। तो मैं करता ही रहता था। तो ये भगवान की कृपा थी मेरे ऊपर। प्रभुपाद जी के मेरे गुरु जी प्रभुपाद जी मेरे को मिल गए। अब तक प्रभुपाद जी की कृपा मेरे शरीर के ऊपर है। हाँ, तो भले मैं छोटा हूँ देखने में, लेकिन प्रभुपाद जी की कृपा विशेष है मेरे प्रति। प्रभुपाद ने मेरे को बहुत माना हुआ है। जो भी मैं काम सोचता हूँ, कार्य सोचता हूँ, प्रभुपाद जी मेरा कार्य आगे बढ़ाते जा रहे हैं, अभी भी बढ़ाते जा रहे हैं। मेरे को कोई कमी नहीं की है प्रभुपाद जी ने। हाँ, मेरा हेल्थ भी अच्छा है, सब कुछ, सब व्यवस्था अच्छा है। तो प्रभुपाद जी की कृपा से सब लोग मेरे को बोलते हैं प्रभु आप बहुत भाग्यशाली हो प्रभु जी, आप प्रभुपाद से दीक्षा लिया, हमको तो मौका नहीं मिला। इतने आदमी आके मेरा पाँव पड़ते, पाँव छूते, लेकिन मेरा पत्नी बोलता है कि सबको पाँव मत छो, आपके बुरे कर्म आपको भोगना पड़ता है। तो लेकिन लोग आके मेरा पाँव पड़ते तो मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ। हाँ, ज़्यादातर मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता। हाँ, आई कैन नॉट टेल देम बैड थिंग्स। तो इसीलिए ये मेरे गुरु महाराज की कृपा है, प्रभुपाद की कृपा है, मेरे सीनियर गॉड ब्रदर की कृपा है। तो मैं यहाँ 1975 में ज्वाइन हुआ हूँ। बहुत धन्यवाद आप लोगों का। इतना कहते हुए और भी हमारे गुरु भाई वरिष्ठ विराजमान हैं, बैठे हैं, तो उनको भी सब मौका देना है। धन्यवाद। और ये अपना ये प्रभु जी धर्मात्मा प्रभु की जय, और हमारे प्रेसिडेंट पंचगौड़ प्रभु की जय हो। धन्यवाद। हरे कृष्णा।
Adi Bhaksha Prabhu, thank you very much. I didn't understand a word you were saying, but we're going to hear from our temple president, Panchagoda Prabhu.
Tasmai Shri Guruvai Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. 49th anniversary of the opening of Shri Krishna Balaram Mandir ki jai. We're very fortunate to be sitting here. Srila Prabhupada, he gave his heart and soul to not only to push forward the opening of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. We'll hear more stories. Mother Devi Shakti will be speaking next. Shruta Kirti Prabhu. And how Prabhupada was encouraging his devotees, but he was very keen on all managerial aspects about cleanliness and about proper organization and management with intelligence. And we can just see how Prabhupada came, by his whole life, he set the proper example, how to always think of Krishna, work hard for Krishna. He was very proud of his Krishna Balaram Mandir. He was calling all the devotees, when Prabhupada was preparing to leave this world, calling all the devotees, all the GBC, everyone to come here and be with Prabhupada, chant the holy name and hear Bhagavatam. It is the perfection. Krishna Balaram Mandir is providing a space where devotees can increase their hearing and remembering Krishna and Balaram, and of course all the Vrindavan inhabitants. But it's just so spiritually surcharged, and to be here, to serve here, and to render any kind of services, hearing and chanting, is a great spiritual benefit and upliftment. So Srila Prabhupada, he was very keen on Bombay, Mayapur, but Vrindavan is his home. Mother Devi Shakti put a beautiful book together, Vrindavan is my home, and the story, step by step, unfolds how the Krishna Balaram Mandir became manifest, all the trials and tribulations and all the effort and energy and devotion of devotees, and Srila Prabhupada pushing and at the same time giving love and transcendental upliftment, but also lots of chastisement. A lot of the managers and leaders got very heavily chastised because Prabhupada felt he needed to bring everyone to a high standard, a Brahminical standard, and even the governor came and so many other local Goswamis, Pujaris. Prabhupada wanted the temple to be accepted in the way it is, Krishna Balaram, Gaurnitai, Radhashama Sundar, and it's a glorification of the Supreme Lord. So Mother Devi Shakti, we can come and speak. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kipa Sinubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. In order to understand this temple, we have to understand Prabhupada's motivations. We know that Prabhupada, he started as a pure devotee coming to this world, never forgot Krishna for one moment of his life. And then when he met his spiritual master, instantly his spiritual master gave his lifetime instruction to spread this Krishna consciousness all over the world in the English language. So that was Prabhupada's first and foremost mission. To fulfill the instruction of his spiritual master, he underwent intense austerities to go to the West, to establish Krishna consciousness from 1966, to open temples all over the world. And at one point, Prabhupada felt, now I have done what my spiritual master has asked me to do. That was phase one of our Krishna consciousness movement, ISKCON. Then Prabhupada began phase 2. That was, now he had hundreds of disciples all over the world, and he wanted to make a place for his disciples in the holy dhams. He was standing in front of Rukmini Dwarkadish one morning at his world headquarters in Los Angeles. He had installed them, established the new Dwarka temple there, where there were skillions of babies being born and grihastas and so much training going on for the temple presidents and the pujaris coming from all over the world. Prabhupada had just masterminded such a wonderful organization. And while he was standing in front of their lordships, Rukmini Dwarkadish, Dwarkadish said to Prabhupada, "Now go back to India." And Prabhupada was stunned. He told 2 devotees this afterwards. He said, "But my spiritual master told me to preach in the West. My godbrothers are preaching in India." Dwarkadish told him, "No, I want you to go back to India." And Prabhupada objected that, "Look at this beautiful temple in Los Angeles that has been created. We have so many devotees, I have so much more work to do." And then Dwarkadish made a deal with Prabhupada. He said, "If you go back to India, I will give you a temple 100 times better than this Los Angeles temple." Where was that temple? Not just one temple. Krishna gave him 3 temples. Mayapur, Vrindavan, Bombay. Also Hyderabad, let's say 4 temples in his lifetime. So Prabhupada made an announcement to the devotees, completely out of the blue. "I'm leaving." 1970, August. "Prabhupada, how can you leave?" He just got on a plane and left. And he went to Japan. And then he called his devotees, "You come with me. I'm going to Calcutta." He took some of his foremost preachers to Calcutta. Already a few devotees were here in India. From when Prabhupada had come in 1967, some devotees who just couldn't bear the separation from Prabhupada, they came to India. 1967, now it was 1970. They had stayed here, like Achyut Nanda, Jaipataka. They weren't sannyasis at that time yet. So when Prabhupada came to Calcutta, he started. First, get the land in Mayapur. He sent his devotees there to get the land in Mayapur. Then he was looking towards Vrindavan. We needed land in Vrindavan. So he came here. He started his World Sankirtan party all over India from Bombay. It took him 1 year traveling everywhere. And finally in 1971, Prabhupada brought the devotees here. He sent, before that, Guru Das. Because Guru Das and Jamuna, when they opened up the temple in San Francisco with Shamasundar, Malati, and the other couple, Guru Das and Jamuna expressed a desire to go to Vrindavan at that time. So Prabhupada wrote to Guru, he told Guru Das, he wrote to him, and he was still in America, he said, "Now you come to Vrindavan and you find land or you find a temple that will be donated. I want to start a center there." So Guru Das came here all alone, and he was scouting around. He found the Maharaj of Bharatpur had the Lakshmi Rani Kunj temple on the shore of Jamuna, and he started to negotiate for that. The devotees came in 71, and they inadvertently offended the Maharaj. Maharaj had sent a silver singasan for Radha and Krishna, and one devotee, thinking that Maharaj wanted the devotees to pay for it, sent it back and refused it. So Maharaj of Bharatpur at that time closed down the whole negotiations. He wouldn't have anything to do with giving his palace to Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was at square one again. And he knew a few, from when he lived here, he knew some devotees, he knew some Goswamis. He was canvassing, is there anyone who would like to donate? So Prabhupada, he was staying at the Radha Damodar temple in 1972. And next to Radha Damodar Temple is Govindabag. And that's where all the wealthy Marwaris and also Goswamis stay. They have their homes there. So he was just speaking as he spoke to everyone, that I'm looking for land, I'm looking for a temple if anyone wants to donate. And one Mr. Kashi Prasad Sharaf, he said, well, we have some land, maybe you would be interested, but it's outside of the town. It's in Ramanreti, very far away. This was the jungle at that time, where all the Gundas lived. So Prabhupada said, I'm very interested, can you take me there? Immediately, Kashi Prasad Sharaf brought him here, showed him the land. Prabhupada said, this is perfect. Will you donate it or should I purchase it? And Kashi Prasad Sharaf, being a very shrewd and intelligent devotee and Marwari, he said, well, it's not in my name. It's in my wife's name. And she's in Guwahati. She'll be coming in March. So Prabhupada waited. His wife came, Gita Devi Saraf. She'll be coming here today also. She's now 87 years old. At 10 o'clock she'll be coming. We try to bring her every year for this day. Such a wonderful Vaishnavi. She lived here since she was 14, 15 years old, had 24-hour kirtan in her house for 40 years. And she said, yes, I will give this land to Srila Prabhupada. So then Prabhupada started the negotiations. But Gita Devi Saraf didn't realize that there were other people who had been eyeing her land. For instance, our neighbor, Shamama. Shamama had also gone to America, England, and had connection with the devotees. And Prabhupada warned them, you be careful. This is not a sampradaya that we follow. It was a bit sahajiya. She taught them how to dance in circles and different things like that. So she wanted this land. And there was another sadhu who got very angry at Gita Devi Saraf that you said I would have this land. So Gita Devi Saraf was put into turmoil that I don't want to offend the Vaishnavas here. So Prabhupada he thought that the deal was made and everything was going along. Suddenly, Kiradakshay Vishnu, who had come from England to assist Prabhupada to set up the Hindi Bhagavad Darshan publication, he wrote to Prabhupada that Gita Devi Saraf, she's changed her mind. I don't know what to do. So Prabhupada, as his emissary, sent Kiradakshay Vishnu to her to make a proper deal, what's going to happen. So Gita Devi Saraf, her worshipable deities in her home are Shri Shri Radha Kunja Bihari. The 40th anniversary, we brought them in a huge procession here and kept them on the altar for that day of Ramnomi. Now she's living under the care of some disciples of Radha Govinda Das Goswami and being taken care of very nicely. So she went to her lordships, Radha Kunj Bihari, and asked them what to do. And they gave her a solution. She said, I'm going to give 2 pieces of paper. On one piece of paper will say, nahi. On another piece of paper will say, huh. I'm going to fold them up and put them at the feet of Kunj Bihari. And you, Kiradakshay Vishnu, you will pick one piece of paper. And whatever Kunj Bihari has decided, that's what I will do. So Kiradakshay Vishnu prayed to Prabhupada. He picked a piece of paper. He opened it up. What did it say? Huh. She said, the land is yours. When Prabhupada heard this, he flew right here. He was in Mayapur. He had just done the groundbreaking for the Mayapur temple. As soon as he finished that groundbreaking, he came here to Vrindavan. He wasn't going to let another obstacle come in his way. That day that he arrived, he set up the groundbreaking ceremony here. And in Gita Devi's house, if anyone's ever gone to the Kachahari here in Mathura, that's the law courts, sometimes it takes 20 years to get something done. So Prabhupada was not going to let any more obstacles come in his way. He called the judge, the advocates, the clerks, to Gita Devi's house. And he had all of the signing done there. No typewriter. Jamuna Devi, with calligraphy, wrote the deed. And everyone right there in Gita Devi's house signed and sealed the deed. It was done in one evening. That was it. And then, 1972, we had the land only up to here, only up to where the temple is. The first 26 feet, Kashi Prasad Saraf would not give to Prabhupada because he wanted to make a petrol pump there. The Chatikara Road at that time was as big as this chair. It was big enough for one Tanga to come from Chatikara into town. But he, with his Marwari vision, there were only 2 cars in Vrindavan at that time. He foresaw that sometime in the future, Vrindavan will need a petrol pump. And this is where it's going to be. So he wouldn't give that land. Now, Prabhupada had another vision. We'll fast forward a little bit. 1976, temple was already built. Prabhupada, by that time, had a very loving relationship like a daughter with Gita Devi Saraf. And he called her and he said, this is your Lala, these are your children, Krsna and Balaram. How can you have the entrance of the temple on a little gully on the side here? They deserve a beautiful entrance at the front of the temple. She said, yes, you're right. He said, I want you to sign over that land to me. She said, yes, I'll sign it over immediately. Well, when Kashi Prasad Saraf heard that, he went to court. Yes, that court, judgment was there for 40 years. Within that time, he left his body. Within that time, Srila Prabhupada, he was preparing to take samadhi. It still hadn't been settled. We couldn't build anything on that land. We just had one beautiful fountain there. And the well. So Prabhupada, what did he do? He called the devotees and he said, you make my samadhi there. And you make a big samadhi. No one can move a samadhi. So Srila Prabhupada had his samadhi established on that land. And Kashi Prasad, soon after that, went back to Godhead. And then it was just Gita Devi here. And after so many years, 40 years, it was in court. Finally, we made a settlement with Gita Devi Saraf, and this land then became ISKCON. We were able to complete the construction, and that way the entire land was donated. So now we'll come back to the grand opening. 1972, Prabhupada had to have an architect. He had to have a plan, construction plan. He needed devotees here. There were a few devotees staying at the Radha Damodar rooms. So he had some devotees come and stay here. And then he started canvassing. Smar Hari will tell you he was one of the first devotees who came here in 1972 because he used to be a bricklayer. Nothing. Nothing. He came here to help with the construction. Gunarnava came here. And in that way, gradually, Prabhupada was able to get some devotees to come here. But the plan of the temple was done by some architects, professional architects in Delhi. And it wasn't anything special. Then in Amsterdam, one Mataji had joined, Kishori. And she was married to a young man named Hans, who was a fashion designer. Now, Kishori joined the temple, left him, took the kids, and Hans decided, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to India and I'm going to make a photographic essay of the holy places in India. So he landed in Bombay. He landed in Bombay, and because he had some contact with the devotees through his wife, he met the devotees, and the devotees, they found out that he had some experience in draftsmanship, in drawing blueprints. So they introduced him to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada, within 2 weeks, Prabhupada initiated him and sent him to Vrindavan to be the architect to build this temple. Now, Hans, he didn't even know what his name was when he was initiated. Prabhupada said that your name is Saurabh. And he thought that he said Zorro. Zorro was a big, he was the Batman of Mexico, right? So he had to, first he had to figure out what his name was. Then he had no understanding of Krishna consciousness. And now he was put in charge of this whole project. So he came here, Smartahari and Gunarnava came, and Gunarnava describes that in those days there was nothing on the property whatsoever. They built some mud huts for the brahmacharis to live in and to make a kitchen. He sat down in one of those rooms. They created something that looked like a draftsman board, and he started to design. And he did not put his pencil down the whole time. Gunarnava had never seen anything like it. He just designed, and within a week, everything was designed, and they sent it to Prabhupada, and he loved it. And that's what we're sitting in right now, this design. Now, the foundation that Prabhupada had installed at the Bhumi Pujan, that was from the original architect's plan. And that was all on ground level. You see, we have to walk up steps now to get into the temple. So Surabi, he could understand that if the temple is on ground level, that means every time it rains, the whole temple is going to be flooded. And we had a very small budget. So he was brilliant. He decided, we don't have enough money to bring sand to raise the entire temple. So he dug out from the courtyard all the sand he needed to raise where we're sitting now 2 feet. So it was 2 feet below and 2 feet above. And he envisioned that now that we have this sunken courtyard, we can have boat festivals, we can have dramas, we can have Julan Yatra. We owe so much to Saurabh. Later he became Surabi Abhipaliyantan Swami. When the temple was finished, the day after the grand opening, Prabhupada went on a morning walk here on the Chatikara Road. There was nothing on either side. In front of our temple was one lassi shop run by Bihari Lal. And that was the big maya for the devotees to run out and get a lassi. So Prabhupada would walk to a special place and then come back. It was just jungle out there. And Prabhupada was saying that I pushed the devotees so hard to build this temple. I was practically beating them. And of all of the devotees, I was beating Saurabh the most. And the devotees, Srila Kirti will tell, he used to feel sorry for Saurabh because Prabhupada would yell at him and push him and scream at him and no sleeping. The whole guest house was built in 8 months, 24 hours. They had 300 men working here to complete the temple in 8 months after Prabhupada was disappointed in 1974. Saurabh, because Prabhupada, he was looking at the temple in 74, and he said, "Where are the domes?" There were no domes. And Saurabh said, "We didn't plan any domes." And Prabhupada said, "Well, where are the domes?" So Saurabh had to figure out how to make domes. And these domes, there are tons of material. So he had to consult with Lahiri, the construction engineer. How are we going to make domes? And Mr. Lahiri said, "Well, we can make one very small dome on top of Krishna Balaram. That's as much as the foundation will hold." And Saurabh said, "No, Prabhupada wants 3 domes." He said, "Well, then we're going to have to make a whole new foundation." And at that time, Hrishikesh had been sent by Prabhupada as the interim president. And Saurabh said to Hrishikesh, "Well, we have to increase the foundation." Hrishikesh said, "We can't do that. We're not allowed to do that. Everyone will criticize us because we already did the Bhumi Pujan with the foundation." So what they decided was that secretly, only at night, with everyone sleeping and everything closed, they would dig new foundations. You'll see the pillars are coming out. And behind the peacocks, you'll see the peacock feathers of the original foundation. All of that was done secretly, while Saurabh had to stay up all night to make these new foundations so that we could have these 3 domes. Now, how did they make the domes? Miraculous. They took cow dung, and they formed the cow dung patties. They're cow dung patties that are specially made so that they interlock into each other. And they formed these cow dung patties so that it would be in the shape that they're in now. And with these cow dung patties, then they put the bricks, chipping the bricks, then they put the cement, then they did all of the decorations, they made the lotus on top, and then the devotee who collected the money, his name is right here, Guru Kripa Swami, he decided, "I'm going to get these kalashes and this chakra and this flag." And he got them all made in copper, and he got them gold coated. So this is how these domes were created. We could go on for hours and hours. There are other speakers. Now, as for their lordships, way back in 1972, we had the ISKCON press in New York City. And Prabhupada had sent the top artists and anyone who had any experience with printing from Boston to make this ISKCON press. And there was one artist who came. His name was Bharadraj. He was married to Rukmini at the time. So Bharadraj, every month we had to produce a Back to Godhead magazine from the ISKCON press. And he was an excellent artist. One month, on the back of the Back to Godhead magazine, he painted this beautiful painting of Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan, with a cow on one side, a calf on the other side, and Balaram with his arm on Krishna's shoulder. When that Back to Godhead magazine reached Prabhupada, he said, "These are the deities for Vrindavan." And he had Bharadraj and his wife and a whole team of artists come to Mayapur first. And they learned how to make clay, like the Durga deities, the clay deities that are used in worship. And then he had them come here and oversee the carving of the deities. Jamuna was here already. She had been traveling with Prabhupada since 1970, and when she was in Madras, they were staying at the home of some life members who were worshiping Radha and Krishna. And she fell in love with the Radharani that was being worshipped. And she took pictures, and she decided that this is the face that we're going to make the deities of Radha and Krishna here. She slightly altered, she made the chin different, but that picture you can see in the books, in her books and also in our Vrindavan is My Home. That is the deity that Radharani was formed from. Shyam Sundar, Prabhupada, he explained to Dhananjaya that Radha and Krishna, they're only 11, 12 years old. That's how long Krishna stayed here. They're just young children. He told Kishori, when there was a complaint from our temple commander, Smarahari was leaving. Prabhupada captured him. He said, "Why are you leaving?" He said, he'll tell the story. The end of the story is that, you see, we had very little ingredients for cooking in those days. The temple was so poor. And if one person used up all the boga in the morning, there was nothing to cook for the rest of the offerings. So Kishori used to use up for the Raj Bhog, all the boga, and then we had nothing in the evening. And there was no way to stop Kishori because she was the wife of Saurabh. So, and even Smarahari couldn't stop her, so he was going to leave. So Prabhupada called in Kishori, and Kishori gave her side of the story after he had heard Smarahari's side of the story. Prabhupada explained to her that, yes, Krishna and Balaram, they're young boys. They're young boys, they're out in the forest all day. You have to feed them very nicely. At the same time, it's not that it's only your offering. They have to eat all day. So some arrangement was made, and Smarahari stayed, and Kishori was controlled with her cooking of the boga. So that's much later. Now, the deities had to be carved. Bhardraj, Jamuna would go regularly to oversee the carving. Bhardraj was not happy with the murti of Prabhupada. Although they had given Gurudas had taken 360-degree photos of Prabhupada. He was a professional photographer. They still didn't do it right. We went 40 years later, and that original murti was still sitting on a top shelf at the Pandey's showroom because Bhardraj rejected it. They had to remake. And Bhardraj watched how the murtiwalas, they had a big, huge block of white marble, a big, huge block of black marble, and they have shastras by which they know exactly where the eyes, nose, proportions go, hands, feet, how long, everything. And he watched them as they chiseled, and he saw Krishna and Balaram appearing from those two big blocks. Gornitai, in the dancing form, Radha and Krishna. Now, the mudra of Radharani, Prabhupada personally showed that to Jamuna. He said, Krishna is playing his flute, and Radharani is simply dancing. And he showed her the form of Radharani dancing, the way her hands are. Of course, now we never get to see Radharani's hands because the devotees, in their exuberance of bhakti, they always put things in her hands. But originally, Radharani is simply dancing here. Prabhupada originally wanted Astasaki. So, because the artists had come here, they had learned how to make the clay dolls in Mayapur. They wanted to satisfy Prabhupada's desire. Because as an afterthought, Prabhupada told Jamuna, I want Astasaki. Jamuna wrote back that, well, we've already made the altars, they've already been put in place. There's no room for Astasakis. So in order to please Prabhupada, the artists, with Bharadraj leading and Adi Dev and many other great artists, they created 6 more gopis. And when Prabhupada came in 1974, they surprised Prabhupada. They had these beautiful gopis, and they put them in Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada's room, there was no bed, there was no railing, it was Prabhupada's desk, and the whole rest of the room was deities for the devotees to sit. And where the Parampara pictures are on the left-hand wall, they put these 6 gopis for Prabhupada to see. So when Prabhupada came in 1974 thinking that the temple was going to open, the first thing he did was he walked into his room and he saw these beautiful gopis and he started to cry with ecstasy. And then he walked into the rest of his room. He had just arrived. He walked into the kitchen and we were all busily cooking for Prabhupada. There were quite a number of us in the kitchen there. He swept his hand across us with tears in his eyes. He said, "You are all personification of the dolls." And then, with that great ecstatic entrance of Prabhupada in 1974, he then came out of his house and saw the condition of the temple, that this temple is not ready to open. And Prabhupada had a time frame. He had promised Kashi Prasad and Gita Devi that it would be ready in 2 years. They gave it in 1972, in 1 year. 1973, it was impossible. They extended it 1 more year. This was the end of the extension, and then they were going to take it back. So 1974, this put Prabhupada into so much anxiety. He asked, what should we do? He was asking all the devotees. No one dared to say anything. Finally, Nalini Kanta, who just left yesterday, he had the courage. He said, "Prabhupada, it doesn't look like the temple's ready to open. We should postpone." So then Prabhupada went into his room with all of his leaders. He said, Saurabh, tell me honestly now, how long will it take you to finish the temple? And it was Janmashtami. It was a week before Janmashtami. And Saurabh said, "Prabhupada, it'll take me 8 months. So they calculated, they said 8 months. All right, Ram Navami, we will have the grand opening, 1975. Now Guru Das, he was blamed for all of this because Guru Das, out of his fear of not pleasing Prabhupada, he kept writing Prabhupada, "Yes, everything will be ready, you come, we have everything ready, the deities are ready, the altars are ready." So Guru Das, out of complete devastation, when Prabhupada, after 1974, Prabhupada fell ill, 24-hour kirtan was started, he couldn't eat for about 2 weeks. Shruti Kirti can describe everything. He was the personal servant. Shruti Kirti then fell ill. It was a terrible time here. Then Prabhupada went to Mayapur. As soon as Prabhupada went to Mayapur, Jamuna and Guru Das were so depressed for displeasing Prabhupada that one day they packed up and left here. And that's why Jamuna wasn't here for the grand opening, although she had worked so hard for so many years for this temple. Guru Das came back and he arranged for the parade, he got the elephants, he did many other things. So, grand opening, it was going to happen now. And the Gaur Purnima festival was in March. And after Gaur Purnima festival, there was a gap of like 20 days. And Prabhupada, about 1,000 devotees, it was the first time ever, Mahendra in Los Angeles, he would arrange for the devotees to come every year. There had only been 3 Mayapur Vrindavan festivals before that. He booked, chartered an entire 747 jet plane to bring all the devotees from America and Europe. The jet plane started in Los Angeles. It stopped in New York and picked up the devotees from the West Coast and East Coast. It flew across the Atlantic Ocean and stopped in London and picked up all the devotees in Europe. And the devotees brought prasadam for the devotees on the plane. And they had such an ecstatic Mangalartik when the plane was flying that the pilot, he had to make an announcement that there's turbulence. We don't know where the turbulence is coming from. But everyone has to sit down and buckle themselves in their seat. So they continued the Mangalarti sitting in their seats. So all the devotees had come, and Prabhupada wanted the devotees to stay for the Vrindavan grand opening. What were the devotees going to do for 20 days? So the devotees in Hyderabad arranged for a big Pandal program. And while we were all still in Mayapur, Prabhupada decided he would send an advance party, this time to make sure that there was going to be a grand opening here. So they were choosing, Prabhupada, he chose Bhavananda, who extremely experienced in setting up temples. It was he who set the color patterns for all the temples around the world and decorated the temples so beautifully, Los Angeles, New York, then he came here. So Prabhupada put him in charge as the director of the grand opening. He brought his men, Shrudakirti arranged, he had us come to set up Prabhupada's house, because Prabhupada's house was the only building. Their lordships were living there, all of the paraphernalia was there, everything was there, because this whole place was the construction site. All of the carpenters were in the courtyard. There were about 100 carpenters. They had to make everything for the guest house. They had to make the doors. They had to make these doors. Everything wood was made by hand here in the courtyard. And they had to move all that out, everything. And when we were sent, the advance party, we were told that we had 2 weeks until Prabhupada was arriving, because Prabhupada was going to go to the Hyderabad program and come with all the devotees. We arrive, we're at Mangalartik in Prabhupada's house, because we had everything there. Bhavananda stands up after the Mangalartik. He said, I just got a telegram. Prabhupada is arriving this evening at 7 o'clock. We had 13 hours to get everything ready for Prabhupada to arrive. So whoever was here, they had to bring the deities into the temple. We had to clear out Prabhupada's house. In 13 hours, we had the whole place ready for Srila Prabhupada. And when he walked in the gate this time, he was beaming. You can see the pictures of him on his Vyasasan. You never saw such a happy person, because this time it was going to happen. And Prabhupada had invited the governor, Mr. Chenna Reddy, M. Madi Chenna Reddy, who he already knew from Hyderabad. And everything this time was just going to happen perfectly. Now, in order to satisfy everyone, the dignitaries who had to come, the Goswamis who were going to visit, Prabhupada extended the grand opening. Ram Navami was going to be April 20th. He started the grand opening on the 13th, a whole week of festivities. And there were 1,000 devotees coming from Hyderabad. So what were the 1,000 devotees going to do for a whole week? So devotees in those days, it was zonal. There were only 12 GBCs. So Prabhupada set up a program that each zone, 12 GBCs, they would start 24-hour kirtan here in the temple. And any devotees, anytime Prabhupada saw anyone just hanging around, everyone would get sent into the 24-hour kirtan. So this is when 24-hour kirtan started. And Prabhupada wanted it continued. And it was continued. It dragged a little bit, and sometimes when the temple was closed, there would only be one person. Then 1984, when Ayendra came, it got built up again. But that 24-hour kirtan, Srila Prabhupada is the founder acharya of 24-hour kirtan. He started it at the opening of this temple and wanted it to continue. He told Dhananjaya, who Prabhupada specifically sent here to be the temple president, he said that Vrindavan temple is the beating heart of ISKCON. And when I know that the kirtan is going on, then I know that the entire society is going on nicely. So he wanted this kirtan to go on. He wanted everyone to take part. Those who were engaged in very important service, they did not have to take part in the kirtan. We all did originally, then Prabhupada changed it. He adjusted it because there were just a handful of devotees here. We had 14 lordships to take care of, 6 offerings, the 24-hour kirtan, the whole guest house to run, and they were just hard. Nobody wanted to stay that summer. So we were really strapped for who's going to do what. And so the grand opening, that first week, Prabhupada had cultural programs. He had written to Guru Das and to Prajapati that I want 7 dramas prepared. So these dramas were all prepared. On the day of the installation even, right after the installation, when the Prabhupada had performed the artik, when the temple was closed, the first drama was performed here in the courtyard. Who knows what the drama was? The slaying of Jarasandha. And Prabhupada loved it. This combat. It was such a fight to get this temple built. So Prabhupada loved it, and then after the drama, all the devotees, led by a kirtan, by Brahmananda, the devotees, the actors, everyone here in the courtyard, it was just an ocean of kirtan. It had finally happened, the grand opening. And then after that drama, Prabhupada had arranged for 6,000 people to be fed. Everyone had the same menu, but there were VIPs who got 2 extra sweets. 2 sabjis, puri, laddu, I forget what else. We'll have it today. And then the VIPs, they got rasgulla and kheer along with it. So this whole place, wherever there was room to sit, from here to the street, everywhere were lines of devotees. And Prabhupada went through those lines with the governor. They made sure that and there was Dandi Ashram at that time, where Krishna Bhakti Ashram, where up to where the Russian house is, everything there. Yasomati Nandan was in charge of the serving there. And everyone was fed. Smarahari, he was in charge of the halavai, getting everything. And I'll give him a chance to speak in a minute. I'll stop now. Sorry. I'll stop and let everybody else talk. Please forgive me. Hare Krishna. Jai.
Everyone pick up the book, Vrindavan's My Home. She only gave you little previews and glimpses of the nectar, so you should get the book and see the real details of the opening. We have Satyanarayan Prabhu to speak, Shruta Kirti will speak, and Smarahari Prabhu will finish the talk for today. Should be, I think 10:15 is the Abhishek, unless we want to talk a little further. Where's Bhumipati? Okay, hopefully this time.
Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Visharane Nivase Shishanivari Paschara Deshitarne Ram Lakshman Janaki Jai Bolo Hanumanaki Ki Jai. So, I did not have the fortune to be here for the opening, but 15 months earlier, there was also plenty of fortune around because Srila Prabhupada was here We had come with him from New Delhi Temple in a little caravan, and when we arrived, all of this, of course, wasn't here. There was just a very, very huge pit, huge hole with a few concrete pillars and all this iron rebar coming out. If you fell in there, you would have been impaled by the iron. But there was one very, very special place that was finished enough, a very magical place, and that was Srila Prabhupada's rooms here. And since there was no place to stay, we would stay at the Fogel Ashram and would run here in the mornings to hear Srila Prabhupada's lecture. There was Gunarnava, Guru Das, Janava, and Jamuna, and just a few others. And Prabhupada was very joyful. There was just the sound of a little construction going on, and he seemed so much at home. One day when we ran here, Prabhupada suddenly looked behind us with a huge smile on his face. And everyone turned around, and it was George Harrison of the Beatles and Ravi Shankar, the famous sitarist. And it was interesting that George went right to the front, in front of Srila Prabhupada, and Ravi Shankar went in the back and kept his sunglasses on. It was just an interesting dichotomy. But we were kind of moved by George's incredible sincerity. He went into a perfect lotus position and was just focused on Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, at that point, he told him, actually in the class, but it seemed directed at him, he said, everyone should give everything they have to Krishna. So finally, when the Prabhupada cut short the class and he said, bring prasad for George and Ravi. He said that to Guru Das. And then George said, well, Prabhupada, we wanted to go to the Yamuna. We wanted to go to the Yamuna. And then when he said that, he looked at Yamuna Devi. And he stood up and he ran over to her and kissed her on the cheek. And we were thinking, oh my God, he's kissing in front of Prabhupada. And Prabhupada gave this huge beaming smile. And there was a feeling of such family, this wonderful familial feeling there. And what I felt we were witnessing was that prior to this foundation, Prabhupada was laying a spiritual foundation. That here you had the most important place in the three worlds. You had the most famous people on the planet coming to see Srila Prabhupada, and you had the pure Shaktivesh avatar Paramahansa devotee Srila Prabhupada, all in one place. And we felt that this was going to change the world. And it was very clear that Prabhupada was laying a foundation that now has resulted in the building of this beautiful temple that is being described. And Prabhupada very much wanted his disciples and everyone to come here to gain inspiration, to go out back into the preaching world, and to bring Krishna consciousness to the world. This is the center of the Hare Krishna movement, and it was built so beautifully, but even before that, Srila Prabhupada was laying the most divine foundation. And I just want to thank everyone for being here and being so sincere in your service to Srila Prabhupada. That's what he wants to see develop here. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Satyanarayan Prabhu ki jai. So Shruti Kirti Prabhu, then I think Smar Hari Prabhu, and if Bhumipati is here, he can also speak.
Hare Krishna, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pechani Nirvishesa Sanyavari Paskachade Satarani. Can't you just listen to Daiva Shakti like all day long? When she speaks and I'm thinking, what was I doing? in a way. And I see that more and more when I was with Prabhupada. I didn't know anything else that was going on anywhere outside of just being in Prabhupada's room and doing my service. I had so little understanding of so much. Hearing you is just so wonderful. You started out talking about our, what did you call him first? Surab, Hans, yes. I just was in Mayapur last month, and I was spent some time with Rameshwar Prabhu in BBT, big BBT manager for so many years, the source of helping distribute millions of Srila Prabhupada's books. And somehow or other, we started talking about Vrindavan. I mean, Surab, he left, I guess about 5 years ago, somewhere about 5 years ago. So he came here, and then he went, of all places, he went to New Dwarka. He went to Los Angeles to the temple. He had never been there. And he spoke. He was so happy after 40 years that the devotees appreciated him. He thought he was just, someone came, he did a little service. Imagine, this was his consciousness. This is a Vaishnava. He thought he did a little bit. Somehow or other, Krishna was doing everything. Prabhupada directed everything. And then he was gone. So the reception he had when he came here, he was overwhelmed with gratitude for how everyone, we're all living in his lap, the lap of Surab here in this temple. So when he was in New Dwarka, Rameshwar was saying he was talking, giving class, he was crying. So afterwards, Rameshwar said to him, what happened? He said, you're so emotional. He said, well, I was looking at Rukmini Dwarkadish. So, as you said, Prabhupada told a few people, of course, he was one of them, that Prabhupada explained how this temple manifests by the desire of Dwarkadish in Los Angeles. And he said, Surab told him, it was literally a discussion that went on for some time between Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, Dwarkadish, in the form of Dwarkadish. And he described it as an argument because Prabhupada was very settled and happy in the West. setting up, as she said, the world headquarters. That was everything. Everyone was coming to Los Angeles. And when he was given this instruction by the Lord, he was thinking, no, this is my place. But Dwarkadish said no. And I see this temple, of course, the very first temple that was built in ISKCON. This is our first temple, Prabhupada's temple. Everything by the desire of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada, everything manifests so nicely. But it was literally a blueprint for everything that's happened afterwards as well, especially here in India. I was just at Rohini, ISKCON Rohini, last night. I promised to go, so I spent some hours there. They had the Prana Prachishta, beautiful deities, Panchatattva deities, all marble, white Panchatattva, Radha Madhava, Lalita Vishaka, and then Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman. So some of us were up there dabbing ghee on one eye, gold on the other eye, all these processes they do. The devotee, a very nice devotee, he was laughing. He said, Prabhupada said, we just have to chant Hare Krishna, but we do all of these things. It's very wonderful. And a gorgeous temple. But I see all these temples would manifest from here, from Vrindavan, just as everything is manifest from Srila Prabhupada being in Vrindavan and bringing Vrindavan to everyone. So this was what Saurabh was saying was, Prabhupada explained to him, and what he did, he described, and he from just coming here, he had such inspiration, such intelligence given by Krishna. This place will remain here for a long time because he did everything proper. He brought in the proper materials, used the proper water, so that the place wouldn't just crack and fall apart in 50 years. Some of the other buildings do. And he was describing when he came here, how he said there were no blueprints. In the West, everything was blueprint. Like you say, 300 mysteries, everything by hand. Very rarely would you hear anything that was electric and plugged in. But all of this manifests by these craftsmen. He said they literally, just to make these, arches, thank you, just to make the arches. It's not like he could show them everything, all the details. They literally just made half an arch. And then he said, now, turn it over, you do the other thing. And then sometimes it completely wrong. So he wouldn't be satisfied, they'd have to do it again. We were reading in Leelamrita about Srila Prabhupada in Juhu. Prabhupada's determination when the deities were there, he went there and sat, right? There in his room, in his unfinished room. He knew if I'm here, things will get done. Because he knew if he wasn't here, nothing would get done. And he could make things, like you said, just by one little telegram. I'll be there, 7 p.m. This is what he did everywhere in the world. He knew exactly, we say in English, how to push your buttons. He knew how to make us do service, all of us. So here, I was very much in the background. As she said, 1974, when he came, everyone was getting sick. But Prabhupada, he was first. And I've told it many times, but he continued on. He continued, as she said, directing Saurabh. I was amazed at Saurabh. And I remember talking to him, and he said, no, Prabhupada was just giving me instructions. He didn't see it at all, that he was being beat down, chastised. He was being told how things should be done. He accepted it so readily, so easily. He was a devotee. Perhaps for the first 20, 30 years of his life, he didn't know it, but he was always a devotee, and so easily he came to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada knew this is the person and gave him everything to do. I told you, my favorite story about Saurabh had nothing to do at all with the temple. So much he would come in every day. Prabhupada was beating him up because he didn't have a toilet seat in his bathroom. And I would be so bewildered thinking, this not sleeping for days on end, and he's trying to get this temple ready on time. And every day Prabhupada brought him in and said, "Where's my toilet seat?" He wanted a wooden toilet seat. They had bought some cheap, you can imagine, 1974, 75, this horrible plastic seat. Plastic, Prabhupada in plastic, no, it would never happen, never happen. He had his bell metal lota, his plates were marble or bell metal, like that. So plastic, no. And that's what he called them in. Make me a toilet seat. Amongst everything else going on. And so, yes, Prabhupada. Later in the day, call Saurabh. I'm thinking it's about, as little as I know, I'm thinking it's about construction in the temple. Prabhupada's going to tell him, do like this, do like this. He said, "Where's my toilet seat?" I told you the other day, I told that story, 2662. You never knew Prabhupada could come from anywhere. And you could think, like with me, he could be so upset. And then in the next moment, laughing hilariously, his whole body shaking, slapping his knee. You could never think, well, I know what his mood is. You never knew Prabhupada's mood. He was from another world. And he called him in, "Where's my toilet seat?" Of course, the mystery doing it, he's making a toilet seat for Guru Maharaj, for Prabhupada, for Swami, for this world-famous person. And he's doing it by hand as well, with just a little tick-tick, a little chisel, little thing. It took 3 days to make a toilet seat. What to speak of building the temple. Toilet seat took 3 days. And Prabhupada was on top of him those entire 3. I never heard him say anything about this temple in those meetings. All he ever said, "I need my toilet seat." He said, "I'm an old man, I have to sit down." Not like the Indian style, you crouch. No, he needed to sit down. So finally, he got it done. And as she said that morning walk, it was Tamal Krsna said on that morning walk, "Temple is so beautiful, Srila Prabhupada." And he congratulated Saurabh, does such a wonderful, Prabhupada, yeah, everyone's saying Saurabh did so nice. Saurabh did this, Saurabh. He said, "But all I did was chastise him." He said, "But that's my duty. That's my service." But Saurabh was so wonderful. He could absorb anything Srila Prabhupada said, and he manifests this place. And then, as I was saying, we saw in Juhu, Prabhupada went there, and he was determined to be there. He wanted to be there for the opening so much. Not the opening of the temple mattered. It was Radha Rasa Bahari that mattered. It wasn't buildings. It was Radha Krishna. It was the Supreme Lord he was concerned about. And he knew that promise I made to them way back in the beginning, 1971, 1972. You stay here on this property filled with rats and mosquitoes, the smell of fish. You just stay here. I'm going to build you a beautiful temple. I promise. He promised. And difficulties here, the difficulties there were 100 times that Prabhupada had to battle, the battles that he had there. That's what I saw over and over again. I remember Kartik, 1972, in Juhu, so much difficulty. Prabhupada said, "I'll come as soon as Kartik is over. I have to remain in Vrindavan." 74, he became so ill. and we didn't know what was going to happen. At that time, they brought the bed in the Prabhupada's sitting room. It was a similar, otherwise he had his bedroom. He had a bed out in the garden area, right outside on the little veranda there. So many things went on. He didn't eat. He always knew how to inspire us in every situation. His focus was always on his disciples, never about his situation. The fact that he wasn't eating for 2 weeks, he wouldn't say anything. Told you, we were so happy, like you say, Daiva Shakti was there, Jamuna was there. They would all be in the back room, what was his bedroom. Huh? Everyone were always trying to listen. What is he saying? What did he say? I heard that so many times. I would come out of Prabhupada's room, and wherever I would walk, first person I would, what did Prabhupada say? Sometimes I would say things. But then he said, I'll eat. But for me, this was there's so many times, Prabhupada, a few times, it made me feel so wonderful that I mattered. And he said, make upma. And right away, yes, Prabhupada. We were so happy. All he had been doing was chewing on oranges, Mozambique, taking what little juice out of them. But he said, make upma. I said, yes, Jamuna's right behind. I'll tell Jamuna. He said, no, you make it. I want you to make it, which was a shock. Jamuna was the cook. But he said, I like your upma. I said, oh, yes, Prabhupada. So what did we have? Nothing. We had nothing here. We had suji. That was nice. So I immediately went into the back room. What did Prabhupada say? I said, he wants upma. Jamuna was delighted. She said, okay, I'll get started. I said, Jamuna, he said he wants me to make it. And she immediately, another Vaishnavi, wonderful devotee, she didn't look at me like, she wants you to make it? You know. She immediately said, all right, what should I do? She just surrendered herself immediately to Prabhupada's instruction. How can I help? She said, we had dried peas in the little trunk, little metal trunk. That was all we had, the suji, the dried peas. So we made the upma. Took a little bit of time. Had it on the plate, just one katuri, good-sized katuri with the upma in it. Prabhupada sitting up in bed. So I brought it in, put it down, offered obeisances. You look at it, and then, of course, leave the room. Didn't just sit there while Prabhupada took prasadam. Never. He ate very peacefully by himself. So after about 5 minutes, I went back into the room, and I could see he touched it. You could see he played with it. And he saw I offered my obeisances, and again, he knew right away. He knew, oh, his servant wasn't happy I didn't eat. And he looked at me. He said, it's first class. He said, and I thought if you made it, he said, I would get some appetite. You know, I could eat something and get some strength. He said, but I have no appetite. He said, but it's first class. He was more concerned that I was unhappy than with his situation. Over and over again it was like that with Srila Prabhupada. And he's doing everything for us. Everything he's done was so nice. You said, this is the beating heart of ISKCON. And I see that even with the temple. All these temples that happen now. I was in Rohini, ISKCON Rohini yesterday. Gorgeous, amazing temple. I think it took them almost 20 years. 20 years. They stayed with it, and they had their opening going on right now. Abhishek is probably going on right now for all the deities. But they all come from this place that Prabhupada has given us, that Prabhupada works so hard to give us. As he said, the governor, I believe the governor came then in 74. I told you, Prabhupada, he couldn't walk on his own. I would put my hands under his arms, take him to the bathroom, take him back to the bed, back and forth. But the governor was coming, and he was very important because he could get the materials in to get the place finished. So Prabhupada had me shave him. Told you, Prabhupada shaved him every day. He had his little Gillette razor. Every day he would do his shaving, sometimes every other day. But always, didn't see Prabhupada with a beard. Never saw a long beard on Prabhupada. But he told me to shave him. And I did. There was the one and only time I was petrified. Prabhupada's face, pushing his skin. And he was sitting so submissively, just sitting there as I was shaving. And then took him into the bathroom. He got all prepared, put on tilak. He's still sitting in bed. And then I went to do something. I came back, and he said, "All right, we shall go." "Yes, Prabhupada." And again, he looked at me, he said, "Do I have tilak on?" This was, I don't know where he was. We could say he had very high fever, so many things, but he had put it on 2 minutes before. And he looked, asking, "Do I have tilak on?" Because no question of coming out here without a Vaishnava tilak. Always, first thing he did wherever he went, on the airplane before he got into the gate, fresh tilak. Very important, this tilak. And then he came out like he had there wasn't anything wrong with him. He spoke 15, 20 minutes, spoke, and then I carried him back in and laid back down. So this is our history. This is our good fortune. We come in this line under Srila Prabhupada. And as he said, Hyderabad temple, all these temples, they're all like the children of this Vrindavan Mandir. It is most important temple. Prabhupada would use that sometimes. He would say different temples he went to. In London, they know. Prabhupada said, most beautiful deities. But then he would go to New Dwarka and say they're the most beautiful deities. Everywhere, most beautiful, most important. That's how Prabhupada spoke. Devotee, everything is most important. So we have a few more speakers, and I'm going to get ready to go help in Abhishek. Again, we should have Daiva Shakti speak later on in the day, tomorrow. This history is very, very important, and no one has a better understanding and memory putting the books together and how it got to put together. I could listen to it for a very long time. So thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ram Nami ki jai.
Shri Kirti Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Smar Hari Prabhu. The time.
Bhumipati.
Where is he though? I don't see.
Bhumipati?
No, but you can speak now. He'll speak after you. Go ahead.
I think Smar, you're going to speak. Don't see him.
Amagyan Timarandasya Ganan Ganashyalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patit Pavan Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebho Namo Namaha. Lord Ramachandra ki, Lord Ramachandra ki, Lord Ramachandra ki. Shruti Kirti ji, he gave various remembrances of Srila Prabhupada. In one of them, he said he cooked utma for Srila Prabhupada, and he mentioned that he left Prabhupada to eat and then returned a little later. He said that Prabhupada liked to eat alone. On one occasion, Prabhupada said, it's best to eat alone. He explained, while eating alone, one can meditate on Krishna in the form of the prasad. One can eat the proper amount. One can get maximum nutritional value. He continued, he said, when speaking, 2 is the best number. He said, when 2 people speak, you can have a meaningful exchange, an exchange of ideas, a dialogue. He said 2 is the best number. He said for walking, he said 3 is the best number. He said the one who lags behind, he is obliged to keep up with the other 2. If there's only 2 people, then you go at the pace of the slowest person. If there is 4 people, inevitably you split into 2 groups of 2. So he said 3 is the best number. The one behind, he is obliged to keep up. He said for making an important decision, 4 is the best number. And then again, we heard the speaker say that when Srila Prabhupada, the temple wasn't going to be opened, he called his leaders, what can we do? Prabhupada said, 4 people, this is the best to make an important decision. Get 4 different sources of input. He said, and Prabhupada continued, and for spiritual life, the most number possible, this is the best number. So for spiritual life, the more association we can have, this is the best thing. And this best thing of the most number possible, this has manifest as the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And here in Vrindavan, this is the source, this is the root, this is where Krishna consciousness is manifest in a huge way in many people when they come here to Vrindavan and their lives become transformed. One time, I was standing beside the Vyasasan. This is before smartphones. I had a small Instamatic camera with film inside. And I was leaning back against and it was my intention to take some photographs because there was some life members who had come from London, and I want to take a picture of them, offering a flower to Prabhupada, and to give it to them later as a surprise. This was my intention. And so I was in position, I was leaning back, I saw where the people were, where they were in the line, and I was just I was looking through the viewer, getting ready to take the picture. And then I had a realization, and I became overwhelmed. And I spoke this to Yadabar Prabhu, who was standing beside me. And Yadabara, he was a person who Prabhupada had designated to make films about the Hare Krishna people, the Hare Krishna society, and he made some very wonderful films. So as I was looking, I said to him, there are so many different people coming to make an offering of a flower to Srila Prabhupada in this Vyas Puj, in this Guru Puj. There were some Maori people, some native Aboriginal people from New Zealand. There were 2 girls who had a traditional costume from Iran. There were various people from different African countries, from the West Indies. As I was looking through my tiny viewer at the faces, I was seeing so many different types of faces, and the symmetry of the face was different. Different widths of noses, different size of eyes, different chin, different cheekbones, different teeth. There were just so many different ethnicities coming to offer to Srila Prabhupada. So Yadabar, he was listening to what I was saying. I said it would be possible just to make a film of the faces of the people who were coming to Srila Prabhupada, and with complete appreciation, complete gratitude to Srila Prabhupada for having changed their lives. I was having a conversation just this morning with Devashakti Mataji, and she was saying, she was emphasizing it all comes from following the regulative principles. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. If one does this, then one can be in a position to appreciate Krishna consciousness and to act in Krishna consciousness. So there were all these people in my viewfinder, and they were just had so much gratitude for Srila Prabhupada, which they were expressing in the form of offering a flower. And I said to Yadabar, I said, you could have like no sound, just all of these faces, just this complete thankfulness to Srila Prabhupada, and you could make any commentary you wanted. He said, yes, this would be a very, very... So, what we are having today, we had a few people, a few speakers, and they were giving the memories of what happened leading to the opening of the Krishna Balaram temple, which began more than 50 years ago, right up to the opening of the Krishna Balaram temple today, on this day of Ram Navami, which will be 50 years next year. So there were so many people giving so many memories, and each person was doing something different. I was in charge of all the cooking at that time. I had been cooking for the devotees, cooking for the guests, the visitors, and then I was responsible for all the cooking that was occurring for the deities, for the devotees, for the Gurukul kit, so many things. So I was just busy with my service of organizing the cooking for the 6,000 guests who were coming. And that's a whole story, it's a whole tale. But my point is that I had no idea what anyone else was doing. So Srila Prabhupada, he was designating different people to be in charge of different things. And they were saying, yes, Prabhupada, of course, Prabhupada. And to the best of their abilities, with the meager resources which were available in Vrindavan at that time, they were trying to do their service. But no one had any idea of what anyone else was doing. Devashakti always speaks very nicely on this day, and always speaks very nicely on the combined efforts of the various devotees, because she has done a very wonderful thing. What she has done is, through the years, through the decades, she has collected the memories of different people, particularly describing what they did at that time. Because she didn't know at the time what anyone was doing. She was in Prabhupada's room, they were doing the cooking, they were, she was doing particular things. I was doing a particular thing, everyone was doing their particular thing. Shruti Kirti ji, he said, I had no idea what was going on. He said, I loved listening to Devashakti to describe what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. He was simply doing his particular service, which everyone has done. So Devashakti, through the years, she has collected the memories of people speaking on days like this and giving their, this is what I was doing on that particular day. Also by going through the memories that Siddhanta Prabhu in Los Angeles, that he is recording different people's memories of Srila Prabhupada. So what she has compiled is this book, Memories of Vrindavan. And this Memories of Vrindavan book has the complete memory of the day at the time of 160 devotees. So some of these devotees we were expressing this morning have already left us. So Rabbi, who Deva Shakti so rightly this morning described as the main character, he has gone, he has departed, but his memory is here. And year by year, one by one, we had, 9 years ago, we had the 40th anniversary of the opening. Generally, the custom is to have the 50th anniversary. But they were saying, many devotees, they won't last another 10 years. And this is the fact. So, if any of you want to understand exactly the various points of view, because nobody will be accurate in describing the point of view of another. That is a third party. So just like, for example, of the various times that Deva Shakti mentioned me, and I would think, well, that's not exactly quite what happened, according to my memory, according to my... So if any of you want to fully understand the glorious history of this temple, you go to the bookshop. I've just been there. I've picked up this copy. They have so many copies waiting for you. You get this, 160 devotees. It's absolute pure nectar, because it's all about the Krsna Balaram temple, and it's all about how Srila Prabhupada instructed them to do particular services. Then the second thing that Deva Shakti has done, from the 160 and perhaps more reminiscences of various people who did different things, she has made this very wonderful book, which is Vrindavan is my home. And it's full of so many photographs, many of which I had never seen before, photographs of the characters, photographs of the events, photographs of the history. It's the entire history of the Krsna Balaram temple from start, when we got the land, when Prabhupada laid the cornerstone, right to Srila Prabhupada being placed in Samadhi. It's the complete history. These are both very invaluable books. They are limited editions. There hasn't been many. Fortunately, both of them, I've checked, they are still there now. So you please go to the bookshop, you buy one, you buy both of these books, you take them home with you. There's absolute nectar. And also this is a way of encouraging Deva Shakti Mataji for her huge input into doing these books. I will finish now by saying one thing. The 160 people who are in the book, we were sitting in her office, we were looking at the names, and I said, many of these people have gone, and we were, oh, this one, that one. I was remembering many of the people I know of the 106. I know them personally, the 160 people. But what gives me more joy in Krishna consciousness, what gives me more joy in being a member of ISKCON, what gives me more joy in my aspiration to become a Vaishnav, is when I see the face of a devotee who I know I have never seen before. I know many of the original devotees, and it's a joy to catch up with these people after 10, 20 years. Oh, Prabhu, how's things? How, you know, they describe how they're progressing in Krishna consciousness, how they're dealing with so many things, what is their realization. And this is an absolute joy to meet my old friends. But even more than this, what I love to see is the face of a Vaishnav who I have never seen before. And this gives me a real practical understanding of how ISKCON, the internet, is still spreading and expanding from those initial days when we lived here on the land in huts made of brick, put together by mud so they could with the thatch on the roofs. And there was no money. It was just very, very difficult. And now we have such a wonderful society. It was mentioned yesterday, the opening of the Rohini temple in Delhi. I think now there's 18 temples in Delhi. And Devakinandan Prabhu, who I get my information on these things, he tells me there's almost 600 ISKCON temples in India today. So from those original 4 temples, there is now 600 temples. This gives me great joy to understand how the potency of Srila Prabhupada is continuing, how each of us have the opportunity to do Namruchi, Vaishnav Seva, Jivadoya. How we can do these things. We can cultivate a taste for the holy name. We can serve the Vaishnavas in their mission, great Vaishnavas like Srila Prabhupada, and we can become compassionate upon the fallen souls. In other words, become Krishna conscious, make others Krishna conscious. So I am so happy to see how much ISKCON expanding, and especially me from my personal point of view, because each time I visit one of these temples, I see the face of some wonderful Vaishnav who I know I have never seen before, and this gives me more pleasure than eating the nicest utma or halva or anything you can make. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Sri Ram. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Please, go and get your books.
Get your books. So we can start the kirtan now and prepare for the Abhishek. And everyone hopefully get your situation ready for getting the darshan. It says anyone who even sees the Abhishek being performed gets the same benefit. So be attentive and get the same benefit as being in Krishna Balaram Mandir. Shri Shri